Hey Wargamers, today we're going to do another army list review. Now, if you haven't seen one of these videos before, basically I take an army list that has been sent to me by one of my patrons over on Patreon. I review that list, talk about its strengths and weaknesses, and then revise that list while maintaining the original concept of the list to make it a little bit more efficient. Changing the things that I think could be improved and maintaining the things that I think work well, all to try to give a little bit more effective list overall. But yeah, so today we are going to do a list that is, it's a Tau list, and it is focused on using Forge World battle suits. So it's focused on using YVahras and hazard suits in a super aggressive, super punchy, targeted type of list. And so, yeah, let's jump into it. We'll start with the original list, and then a little bit later I'll show you the revised list. All right, so for the original list here, we're starting off with a Tau Sept battalion detachment. Not all of these detachments are actually Tau Sept. There's a couple other Septs that make an appearance here. But we also have the emergency dispensation stratagem. So we're paying 1 command point to get an additional signature system. So there's going to be 2 signature systems in this list. For HQ, we have Macadra Fireblade, always a good choice. We basically start off every review talking about how the Cadre Fireblade is a good choice. In this list, it's not an essential component. There's not a ton of Fire Warriors in this list, but he's still a good marker light source. He's still a good staple unit for you. He also has a Pure Tide Engram Neurochip, allowing you to siphon CP off of spent stratagems, and that's good. It's a great thing to have on a Cadre Fireblade, because your Cadre Fireblade is going to kind of lay low and not be an easy target for your opponent to pick off, right? If you're putting it on something like a Cold Star, that's a lot easier for your opponent to target. Your Cadre Fireblade is more easily hidden, and so the Pure Tide Engram Neurochip is a good choice for the Cadre Fireblade as far as signature systems are concerned. In fact, it's one of the few that the Cadre Fireblade can actually even use. So yeah, so it's good for the Cadre Fireblade and good for the Pure Tide Engram Neurochip too. For our second HQ here, we have a Cold Star with 4 fusion blasters. He also has our second signature system with vector maneuvering thrusters. This allows him to do basically a jump, shoot, jump maneuver. It's good. It's not something that's essential on a Cold Star, but it is useful and allows you some flexibility. So I think that's a fine thing to put on your Cold Star battlesuit. Not sure if it's necessarily worth 1 CP, but it's a nice thing that if it works for you, you should definitely use it. He also is the Warlord with Precision of the Hunter. Now, this is something that I think is probably a more controversial choice. I generally shy away from putting my Warlord on Cold Star, just because Cold Stars have a really good tendency to die. And so we don't really want to be giving up those Slay the Warlord points because of that. We also don't want to lose the functionality of the Warlord trait when that Cold Star dies either. So there's that. He does have Precision of the Hunter, though, which I think is a good choice for being a Cold Star. Basically, this allows you to reroll wounds of 1 for your Warlord against enemy vehicles and monsters. That's going to work out well for this guy, just because if you're rolling 1s, that's going to be half to a third of your wound rolls that you're missing. So you're actually getting a fair amount of recovery, conversion based on that Precision of the Hunter ability. So it's pretty good. I think the more traditional choice would be to have your Warlord be the Cadre Fireblade and do through Unity Devastation. I mean, that's basically my go-to loadout for my Warlord, but I think this has some functionality here, especially given the aggressiveness of this list. For troops, we have 3 units of 5 Fire Warriors. The Fire Warriors have a Shazwi, of course, but only one of those Shazwis has a marker light, so we're just kind of using up some points there at the end of the list, it looks like. For heavy support, we have 2 broadside battlesuit units, each unit consisting of only 1 suit. Quick note here is that these are Shazwi. We should make sure that if any broadside unit should at least have 1 Shazvray, and then any additional suit should be a Shazwi. So we want that guy to be a Shazvray just for the well, I guess for the extra attack, because it's a one-man unit, so the leadership doesn't really make a big difference there, but sure, why not? So we have broadside Shazwi, which we really would want to be Shazray, with 2 smart missile systems, a heavy rail rifle, a seeker missile, and velocity tracker. So I think the smart missile systems are a great choice. The heavy rail rifle is controversial. I would definitely shy away from the rail rifle, go towards the high yield missile pod. They're just going to give you a better outcome most of the time. They're just a more efficient choice. They're going to do better against a wider variety of opponents. And as you'll see, this list has a lot of punching power, but the limited number of shots that you're going to get from a heavy rail rifle from these broadsides aren't going to really make a night and day difference. So if we're trying to improve on this list, I would go with high yield missile pods for the volume of fire. They also have seeker missiles. Seeker missiles, fine choice, not necessary. If you're looking for points, I would take those seeker missiles out. Velocity tracker, I think, makes sense here if we're going with a Tau Sept, and if they have Shao Sun, which this list does a little bit further down. Shao Sun's going to be there. She's going to be calling Cao Yan at least twice, and so you don't really need any other type of supporting system like a target lock. You could go with an advanced targeting system, which is going to give you a little bit more oomph. But if you're going with heavy rail rifle in this selection, I think velocity tracker makes sense. So I would either go with heavy rail rifle and velocity tracker, or high yield missile pod and advanced targeting system, as far as support systems go. But the number one change I'd make here is to have 1 unit of broadsides, not 2, and to max that unit out. Really, when we're bringing broadsides, we want to be able to partner them with Shadow Sun, and having Shadow Sun boost a full unit of 3 broadsides is going to be a whole lot more effective than just boosting a single broadside unit with command and control node. Or a single broadside with command and control node. So really having that full unit of 3 is going to give you a lot more mileage out of the command and control node stratagem. And it's going to just be a huge amount of firepower that is going towards an enemy unit that's going to make a big difference for you. So switch these to high yield missile pods, put them in a unit of 3, and you'll be in a really good shape. As it is right now, it's just a little bit too spread out. For our next attachment, we have an Outrider attachment that's Borkan Sept. But here we run into an issue. It's Borkan Sept, but the HQ here is Darkstrider. Darkstrider is locked to be Tau Sept, so that has to switch. Darkstrider can't be the HQ unit here, but overall, Darkstrider would be a nice component to this list, just helping you out, particularly with your 3 units of Fire Warriors. He's going to allow them a little bit more survivability and a little bit more firepower too. So Darkstrider is a fine component of this list, assuming it's in a detachment that he can actually be placed in. For fast attack, this is where we get one of the centerpieces of the army. We have a YVahra battlesuit with target lock and velocity tracker. I tend to go with target lock and advanced targeting system, but again, velocity tracker is fine. If you're going against things with fly, it's going to be really useful. But it does give the YVahra weapons a little bit more impact if you take the advanced targeting system instead. To support the YVahra, we have 2 units of tactical drones, a 5-man unit of shield drones, and a 6-man unit. 6 is a bit of a bulky unit, but really we need drones to support this guy. The YVahra is not as powerful as it used to be in terms of points. YVahra used to be a fantastic choice. I really enjoyed playing with YVahras. But for 400 points, that's a lot of points wrapped up into one model. Whereas you can get, almost 2 full Riptides for that price. I mean, not quite, but you get a lot more by spending those points on Riptides. That's not what this list is about. This list is about taking the YVahra, so I want to make that work. But I think it's worth noting that the YVahra is a big point sink in terms of overall list efficiency. So the YVahra, very good model, does a lot of hurt, but it needs support. So we have these shield drones here to make that happen. Otherwise, he's going to be off the table pretty fast. So shield drones, super important. And also having this YVahra in a Borkan detachment. I think that's really why this detachment is Borkan, is just for this YVahra here. Gives them those extra 6 inches, which makes a world of difference for the YVahra in terms of its flamer weapon. So good. Next, we have a Vanguard detachment that is Sakia Sept. This is the classic Sakia Sept detachment with an Ethereal and 3 Firesight Marksmen. That's a great source of marker lights for you, and an Ethereal for his buffs. But then we run into an issue here. We have a 4th detachment. At 2,000 points, we can only have 3 detachments. So this is something else that needs to be revised. We need to whittle this down to 3 detachments, not 4. But it is Tau Sept. So again, we're back to being Tau again. We have Shadow Sun, which is a fantastic choice. She's going to be able to call Kaoyun twice and then command control node a bunch too. This is really, again, the reason why you want to have your broadside unit be a unit of 3 is because she's going to be hanging out with the broadsides. There's not really a way that she's going to be able to keep up with the YVahra or any of the other suits that are in this list. She can hang out with the Riptide, which we're going to mention in a minute, but really she's going to be part of your back line. She's going to be hanging out with your broadsides, and that's where she's going to be buffing. So we want to emphasize the broadsides because of that. For elites, we have a Riptide, Smart Missile System, Heavy Burst Cannon, Velocity Tracker, Advanced Targeting System. I think that's really good because he's going to be hanging out inside that Kaoyun bubble. He's not going to be moving, so target lock isn't necessary. Good choice. And then we get to hazard suits. We have 1 unit of 3 hazard suits, all with their double-barrel burst cannons and advanced targeting system. I think that's good. That's going to lay down a lot of hurt. I would split these into 3 one-man units, though. The reason for that is because there's not a huge benefit for them being in 1 unit. It's not like they're going to be targeted by command control node or anything. And they are really special in the way that they can take 4 drones per unit, right? It's not per model, it's per unit. And so you can drop one of these hazard suits in with 4 gun drones and you get a ton of shots. So I really like the hazard suit with gun drone combo. And for that reason, we're going to try to maximize the number of drones that we can take with these hazard suits. And we're going to split them into 3 units and give them drones. I think in that setup, it makes sense to have at least one of your hazard suits have a drone controller. If you run the numbers, you actually, there's a tipping point there where you actually get a lot more benefit for having the drone controller to boost the drone shooting compared to boosting the output of the burst cannons via advanced targeting system. So, especially if we're taking three hazard suits and therefore up to 12 gun drones, having that drone controller is going to be really valuable. So I'm going to do that. And then finally, we have the red-headed stepchild of the Tau battlesuit arsenal. We have Ghost Keel, a Ghost Keel battlesuit. Ghost Keels, I see why this is in here. Is kind of part of the aggressive board occupying component of the list. Does a really good job of that. But the Ghost Keel, I try to make it work, and it just never does anything for me. It never really fulfills the promises of the stat line or anything that I really hope for. So Ghost Keels tend to be something that is either completely ignored or just is shot at, but doesn't do much in return. So overall, I would lose the Ghost Keel here. I don't think it's offering much to this list. So, and there's other things that we want to do that we need those points for. In particular, right? So we need to whittle this down to 3 detachments instead of 4. We also need some more drone support here. So if we have these drones for the YVahra, those savior protocols are only going to work for other Borkan units, which is going to be the YVahra. So we need some sort of drone support for the rest of the list, especially the broadsides, and the Riptide also could use some support. So we need to figure out a way to get some drones in here. The hazard suits down here will help with that, especially if if we're having some of our units move up the board. So if the Riptide moves up the board at some point, he can utilize the drones that are coming in with the hazard suits. So there's an option there too. But yeah, so that's the list. I think overall, we've talked about some of the strengths here. We have the YVahra, we have the hazard suits. It's super punchy, but we do have a lot of points wrapped up in that punchy aspect of it. We don't have a lot of durability necessary built into this list because there aren't a ton of drones, and there aren't a lot of invulnerable saves either. So those are things that I'm going to be looking to improve on in the revision. All right, so here's the revision. Again, I moved this down to 3 detachments. I did that by dropping the Sakia detachment. Basically, we're not going to necessarily need marker lights for the YVahra. We do need marker lights for everybody else. But there's actually, almost a quarter of this list that's wrapped up in the YVahra, and marker lights aren't super necessary for that. So I'm not as worried about marker lights for this list as I would be with something else. That's not to say that there aren't marker lights in this list. You'll see a bunch of them. But I didn't think we need the Sakia detachment to really make this list work the way it would, want to. So I dropped that, and now we're down to 3 detachments. So that's good. For the first detachment, we again maintained that Tau Battalion detachment. We have a commander and a Cold Star. Again, this is exactly the same as it was. I didn't want to mess with it because it seemed like it was part of the concept of the list, is that there's this Cold Star that's going pew 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 and being super aggressive along with his buddy the YVahra and a bunch of hazard suits. So I left him the way he was because of that. I moved Darkstrider up here. Now this has 2 consequences. One is it means that Darkstrider is actually legal in this list because it's part of a Tau detachment, but it also means that I moved the Cadre Fireblade down to the Borkan detachment. And the cost of that is that Volley Fire is a sept-locked ability. So his Volley Fire ability is useless in that detachment because we don't have anybody that could utilize it that's also Borkan. So that's a cost. I don't think it's a huge deal because we only have 15 Fire Warriors, and so we're not giving up that many shots. And because we only have 15 Fire Warriors, they're probably going to want to be pulled in a few different directions, so it'd be hard to get them in the Volley Fire bubble anyway. So I don't think it's a huge cost, but if we wanted to, if we didn't want to lose that ability, we could switch Darkstrider down to a Cadre Fireblade and it would be fine. I think the list would still work about the same if we switched Darkstrider to a Cadre Fireblade. So that's an option there. For troops, again, we have 3 Fire Warrior squads, 5 man each. This time, though, all 3 of them have marker lights. This is where I'm recovering some of those marker lights. For heavy support, again, I've consolidated broadsides into a single unit so that they can be command and control noded as a full unit. And they all have missile pods and advanced targeting system, really going to deliver a painful volley when they are paired with Shadow Sun. So I think that's a way to run them. I also gave them 6 shield drones. They need those shield drones, otherwise they're just going to disappear. They need those shield drones real bad, so we gave it to them. The next detachment is that Borkan Outrider detachment. Again, this seemed like it was something that was critical to the list, and it really is critical to having the YVahra function. So we have the YVahra here and 2 units of tactical drones. I lowered the number of drones because of points restrictions and wanted to get drones into Tau Sept detachments. So we have 8 shield drones. That's pretty darn good. It will keep the YVahra alive for a fair amount of time, especially if he's spending 1 turn up in the air, doing his Nova Charge ability to deep strike back in. So I think that will work out just fine. The Cadre Fireblade still has a pure tight engram neuro chip because again that is a good chassis for that. I should also mention the YVahra here. Let's see, we gave him advanced targeting system instead of velocity tracker because his main weapon is that flamer, hits automatically, does not need to be a velocity tracker thing. He's not going to benefit from any type of ballistic skill modifier. So advanced targeting system is going to benefit both his weapons and make them extra punchy. So we put advanced targeting system on that, maintain the target lock because he needs that. because his weapons are heavy. All right, so for the third detachment, we have another Tau Vanguard detachment. This is led by Shadow Sun. Again, very similar to the original concept, but just some tweaks here. So we have Shadow Sun. For elites, we have a Riptide. He has a smart missile system, and then advanced targeting and velocity tracker, along with a heavy burst cannon, just like he did before. I think that worked out well. But then for the hazard suits, I broke that unit into 3 different units and gave them all gun drones. So we have 2 units that have 1 hazard suit each. Those hazard suits have an advanced targeting system and are accompanied by 3 gun drones each. I didn't have enough points to give them the full 4, but I think that's fine. And then we have another hazard suit unit that has 1 hazard suit with 4 gun drones, but this one has the drone controller. I figured it makes sense to give the one with the drone controller the most gun drones. And yeah, so basically these 3 suits can all deep strike in together. That's going to be, 10 gun drones with the drone controller. That drone controller is going to make a big difference. And you're going to unleash a ton of burst shots because of that. So overall, I think that works out fairly well. The places where this list I think works well is in dealing with units that are going to succumb easily to the YVahra Flamer, things that have a lot of tactical Marines or even Primaris Marines. This is going to do well against Marine type things, maybe guard type things. Even some Horde armies, this thing is going to do okay. The problem with Horde armies is that they can spread out really well and box you out, so you're going to have a hard time deep striking things like the hazard suits. You're going to have a hard time maneuvering this list in the way that it wants to maneuver, so it might have some positioning challenges with that. It might also have a hard time with things like Knights. We don't have a ton of things that can deal with that. We do have Tau Sept, and we do have, we have a pretty good base, right? We have the Cold Star, we have the broadsides, we have the Riptide, and then we have the volume of fire with the hazards as well. And all those things combined with the focus fire stratagem can take out a Knight. I'm not too worried about that, actually. And then, of course, we have the YVahra too. The YVahra can really lay on the hurt. So, 1 or 2 Knights, probably not a big deal. We might run into problems with more Knights or with a more durable army. Anything with an invulnerable save is going to be a little bit harder for us to deal with too. But yeah, I think also this list is going to have a hard time dealing with objectives. I think moving around the board, scoring objectives might be a little bit of a challenge as well. But overall, I think this list is, if not something that is going to be super competitive, it is certainly something that's going to be fun to play. So yeah, that's a revision. I think we maintained most of the idea, but made a few tweaks here to make the list function a little bit better. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Which things do you like? Which things don't you like? How would you change this list to better perform on the tabletop? Any thoughts or comments? I'd love to hear them. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy wargaming. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. This channel is made possible by my supporters over on Patreon. If you enjoyed this video, consider joining our community over there and the associated Discord channel. Special thanks to Aaron Fox, Shifty, Jim Bob, Scott Heater, Nick Steele, Jared Egler, Tao Oswell, Zach Brooks, Stephen Cohen, Jake Johnson, Eric Jackson, Zealous Brimstone, Evan Wells, Benjamin, Julian Peck, Giovanni DiMaggio, and Chris Kessler.